So I'd like to introduce our webinar host today, Mr. Greg Foskey of Panama Primo Group. And Greg is a very accomplished senior supply chain and operations management professional. And today he's going to be talking about managing strategic resources. And we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat box, and Greg may answer it during the presentation, but he will certainly answer it at the end of the presentation. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Greg.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks from me for attending today's webinar on managing strategic resources. As James said, I'm Greg Foskey, and my company is Panama Primo Group. We're a consulting and training company operating in Panama City, Panama, and also in Tampa, Florida. So this webinar has been provided in affiliation with the Florida West Coast chapter of APIX. Aligned with this webinar, I'm going to be teaching the CPIM certification preparation classes for strategic management of resources. And that's going to be on 4 Saturdays starting November 5th. So while that class is oriented towards certification by APIX, this is a good group of 4 classes that can also be used for those wanting to get more information on today's topics. So if you have any more information you'd like to have me send you, email me. You can see the address above. Give me a call, or just go to apixtampabay.org, the address you see on the right, and you can click through their access ports. This information, the contact information, is also going to be at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions during today's presentation, like James says, use the chat function. We'll try to get to those either at that point in time or at the end, depending on the appropriate time to respond to them. So by this point in time, if you've participated in my prior webinars, you've had a solid foundation of knowledge that's going to be expanded on today. We've done things like basic supply chain management, detailed scheduling and planning, master planning of resources. The most recent one was execution and control of operations. For those of you joining me for the first time, this is going to be a high-level overview. It's going to have several key areas, not everything, but we can't fit it all into an hour webinar, but several key areas that are going to be addressed in a lot more detail in the upcoming classes. So prior webinars built on each other, creating a stair step toward the ability to understand and work in this strategic area. So today we're going to move into the capstone session with a look at the strategic elements of resource planning. So in the next 45 minutes or so, we'll take a look at the development of business and operations strategies, making sure that we understand internal and external resources and the need to align both of them. Environmental, social, sustainability considerations, they keep on becoming bigger issues for corporations to deal with. There's growing accountability that's expected from people in what's coined the triple bottom line. Some of you may have heard of that, some of you may not. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. Of course, your financial viability is going to be the biggest thing you want to do over both the short and the long term, making sure you've got the cash flows, making sure you've got the growth. So this all needs to be part of a company's primary objectives. So I'm going to address those today in the presentation as well, along with some higher level opportunities toward the end. So let's start looking at the development of a business strategy. A business strategy is a plan that incorporates decisions on how you approach the marketplace and effectively compete. Within a business strategy, there are going to be internal and external factors that need to be considered. So Thomas Edison, he says, many of life's failures are from people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. He also said results. I've gotten a lot of results. I know thousands of ways that things won't work. So why are these quotes relevant here? Well, because a business strategy needs to be a conviction made based on the realities present. A good starting point is to put together a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, as your first step. Before you spend a large amount of time and resources, make sure that you're going down a path that gives you a high probability of success and maybe substantial opportunity for return. So what would we be thinking about relative to our external environment? What are our supply base needs? What are our market opportunities? What threats are out there? So when you're looking at your opportunities and your threats on the outside, internally, we need to be asking what our strengths and weaknesses are and how they match up to these market opportunities and the market's threats. So based on market expectations and your organization's capabilities, a business strategy can be then can be developed. Your strategy can be based on one or more of four general categories. You can be looking at least cost. We want to be the least cost provider of a particular product. You want to be one that has a lot of product differentiation. You want to be somebody that's going to focus on the ability to react quickly to the changing markets and conditions, a technology stock. Somebody like Apple, obviously, or maybe you want a combination of all of those. So I'll talk about each one of those things today. So what is it that the market wants, and what is it that you can provide? Good strategies, they have to take into account both sides. Otherwise, your strategy is going to be out of balance. You can't sell great capabilities to a market that doesn't value them, and it isn't willing to pay a sufficient price for them. You'd be investing in resources required. Your shareholders may not be getting an acceptable return on your investment. So it's a risk-reward trade-off in that case. Likewise, you aren't going to be able to service a market need, no matter how great the opportunity, without the internal resources and the ability to do so. Alignment of both of these establishes your most promising strategic business opportunities. Okay, let's dig deeper and move into the operations strategy as a subset of the business strategy. For this webinar, the operations strategy, I'm also going to incorporate the supply chain pieces of it into this operations strategy section. In this area, different operational resources need to be defined. Not only does your business strategy need to address the internal and external factors that I mentioned earlier, but both the internal and external inputs are required in order to effectively move from the business strategy into the development of an appropriate operations strategy. APEX defines an operations strategy as the total patterns of decisions that shape the long-term capabilities of an operation and their contributions to overall strategy. So, of course, your operations strategy is going to need to be consistent with your overall strategy. That all just makes sense. So success is based on well-designed processes, producing well-designed and well-accepted products and services. The operations group performs many of the activities required to meet an organization's business strategy. Once an operations strategy has been developed, it's important to measure the performance compared to the agreed-upon objectives. This performance is measured using operations-based performance objectives. That's what you see here in the red box. We'll get into the details of that box later. When evaluating a company's overall performance, you're going to use something like a balanced scorecard approach. Your operations is going to be one of the pieces of a balanced scorecard of key performance indicators. It's going to provide, the operations group is going to provide a significant contribution to the success of the overall business. Performance objectives enable a company to monitor whether or not their objectives are being accomplished. Performance objectives may differ based on where they're looked at in the corporate hierarchy. So if you're up at the top of the organization, you're going to look at long-term objectives and your performance to those. What are your trends? You're going to be looking at things in dollars. When you're out on the production floor, you're probably going to be looking at things more in days and weeks, and you're going to be looking at things more on a unit-by-unit basis. We can also call these objectives key success factors, or KSFs. These factors are selected based in part on your market and your competitive position in it. Do you have a low-cost provider mindset, or do you need a broad product differentiation strategy? Whatever your choice is, it's going to have an impact on nearly everything that you do. KSFs are the things, they're part of your KPIs, or they're the same thing, but the KSFs are your key strategic factors, so they're things that the company needs to get right in order to be successful. So you can differentiate between your KPIs and your KSFs, maybe asterisk the KSFs to give you an indication as to which ones are the most important. We'll talk about priorities throughout this webinar as well. So now, your resources, they can't be mismatched to their market performance requirements. If they are, the output's not going to be acceptable. Does the process match the volume and variety requirements for the product? Is the process layout appropriate? Is the process technology appropriate? Technology, is it best in class, or is it a me too type of technology? A lot of people are using that same production process. Well, depending on the market served, either may be acceptable. You don't need best in class in all cases. If the market requires a me too approach for low cost products, an investment in the best in industry technology may just provide marginal returns. Best in class may actually require a major capital investment that can become a competitive disadvantage, may even cause you to go bankrupt. Be thorough in your decision making, and remember that your ideas may be great, but they may be just too far ahead of the demand curve. Are your job designs appropriate? Are standards established? Are standard work practices established? Do you use lean work practices? If there's a mismatch here, the end result is going to be you're going to have quality issues, cost issues, or your velocity, your throughput may suffer. So this is a little busier slide, so I'm going to just pause a minute and let everybody take a look at it. What it is you look at the complexity of your process flows, whether they're continuous or intermittent, the different types of manufacturing environments that you can have going down the diagonal line, and the way your material flows within that. So that makes sense. Different products require different processes. This chart shows the range of production methods and material flows used for different product types. Based on a customer lead time expectation, their quality expectations or quality requirements, complexity of the product being produced, whether they're going to be stocked, whether they're going to be made to order, the process flows, and the associated tasks, they need to be aligned. So how would you build a space shuttle? You know, here's where I would look at it. I'd look at it on a project basis, fixed position, material flow. How would you build a cell phone? That'd probably be somewhere in the middle here, depending on the type of process that you have, whether you've got cellular manufacturing established in your operations or not. Well, how would you bottle beer? Well, that'd probably be something down on the lower right, where you've got high volume, low variety, mass, continuous type of process. So this chart aggregates a lot of information showing the recommended process flows, material flows, process tasks, layouts, and process types associated with different products. Okay, let's move on. Operations must first have the capabilities to provide value to the business. Then they must actually provide that value. Here we can see the evolution that takes place first in capabilities, then in contributions. What you need to do, I talked about priorities. You need to fix the worst first. Adopt appropriate best practices and make sure that your strategies are aligned with your operational capabilities. This will provide you with an operational advantage over your competitors. This is where Pareto charts, where Pareto is your friend, I guess. So the key here is when operations contributions are at their best, they can actually drive the company's business strategy and actually redefine industry expectations. So this is a great place to be. Don't fall into the trap of making things more sophisticated or complicated than necessary. Thinking that this is the right way to go is not necessarily true. As Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So as I said earlier, performance objectives can be based on generic categories, things such as speed, dependability, flexibility, quality, and cost. The relative priorities placed in each of these categories should be based primarily on the voice of the customer. So we should be looking outward as opposed to inward and just oriented toward our costs. I put this together last night just to kind of give an idea as to what we're talking about here. Here you can see 5 factors that I just mentioned. Also, I put another category called Other at the very bottom, just in case there's a variable that your company needs to look at that may not be specific to those 5. You're in a different technology or a different environment. So what's the most important element to a customer? Well, here I put dependability as that one characteristic that's the most important. Maybe that's because we're in a construction of buildings project in the inner city, and you have to pay a fortune to get permits, shut down roads, rent cranes, other specialized equipment. You need to put them in place and negotiate labor agreements with union employees. So if you look to the right of the importance to the customer, I rank what the competitor has. They're not as good as we are on speed. We're much better on dependability, and that's a good thing because it's very important. Flexibility, they're a little better than us. Quality, they're a little better than us. But as you see over to the right, as I weight these things, the weighted comparison clearly shows that we're going to dominate that competitor based on the fact that we've taken these characteristics and we've put them into their proper priority and made sure that we address them with the proper resources. If our dependability is high in this case, we can charge a premium and cost won't be as important. So we can see that speed, flexibility, quality, and cost are not as important as dependability here. Keep this in mind during your negotiations as well. Listen to the voice of the customer and adapt. You know, if you've got the voice of the customer and you're responding to it, you've obviously got a position where you can look at your prices and possibly be in control of the negotiation. As difficult as this may be, you may not need to be as good at some things that are not as important. If this is the case, you should redirect your resources. So here I have an importance performance matrix. And you look at your current performance, good and bad off the y-axis, the importance of each factor along the x-axis, and I've created these different boundaries. So you've got things where you've put a lot of resources into something that is excessive. It's an opportunity to take some of those resources and move them into areas that require more action. So identify where you have put excess but unnecessary effort, where the opportunity costs are the greatest. Establish your lower boundary of acceptability. Identify the areas that you need to improve. And you can see here I've got a lot of them with little circles, green circles there, and it shows you we want to move those things up above the lower bound of acceptability. Now, when I put all these things into an Excel spreadsheet and look at what the relative priorities are, you can see the thing we're doing the worst on is the thing that needs the urgent action. So understanding and using a particular system is the most important thing that I need to move up and focus my resources on. So if you focus now on the external environment, focusing on the external side of operations strategy specifically, we have 7 key issues. What are the dominant economic features of the industry? These are things like the current market size and growth rate. What strengths and weaknesses do your competitors bring to the market? How many rival firms are out there? What's the scope of their capabilities? What are each of their market shares? What are their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? It's not much different than playing in the World Series of Poker, right? Some competitors can be knocked out early, creating a bigger pot for the survivors. Number three, next, what are the forces driving industry change? So what are the supply side? What are the demand side strengths and weaknesses? What is the pace of technological change and the demand for product innovation? Number four, do competitors hold market positions that present you with major opportunities? Or are they strategically positioned to remain a major barrier to entry? What will they or what could they do in response to your strategic moves? Five, what moves are your competitors going to make if you start to move into their strongholds? Can you gain some insight into their anticipated moves before they occur, potentially blocking them from effective entry into yours? So you can block them, or if you're powerful enough in your industry, let them come in, and you can employ a Machiavellian approach. Let them spend a lot of money and take it out of their bank accounts and try and compete with you unsuccessfully. So that's another approach that some of the bigger players, the oil companies and whatnot, employ. Can economies of scale, vertical integration, or other key factors be exploited for future success in the industry? And finally, what is the trend of your particular industry regarding attractiveness and profitability? Not just for you, not just to assess the potential entrance by new competitors, but you need to look at it and say, am I in the right market? You need to determine, is this a market that you want to keep on serving? So it's more than just a competitive analysis. We'll get into competitive analysis in the next slide, but you need to evaluate your own needs as part of this whole process. By the way, I hope that this helps everyone understand that there are many facets that need to be managed. If you focus on the right things, if you excel at them, and you market them, you have the potential to quickly command the market. So here's Porter's 5-force analysis. Michael Porter of Harvard University put this together. It's a model that's used to analyze competition within an industry and to see what might need to be done to a company's business strategies in order for you to adapt. An unattractive industry would be one where a combination of all 5 of these forces are in a state where they drive down profitability for everyone. Not a good market. Things that are products that are just disappearing, where technology is superseding them. DVDs and CDs and all the latest changes taking over. So questions that should be asked before moving into a new market: how attractive is the industry to new entrants? If you're a new entrant, how attractive is it? But also, how scary is it if it's easy for everybody to come in? Are there substitute products out there? These are things that can blindside you coming from companies outside of the industry who want to try to expand into your market. We've seen some of that activity going on with automotive companies and whatnot. What bargaining power do your suppliers and your buyers have during negotiations? How big and important are you to them? What's the current competitive environment within the industry? What are your rivals' market shares? What are the competitive advantages? What are their reputations? That may be the trump card that keeps them in control and not allowing you to really gain access into their particular markets. Competitor analytics. That's a term. It's important, not just for marketing, but for strategic planning as well. If you only track your own performance, then you don't completely know what's actually happening outside of your piece of the world. Even if you're improving your performance, your competitors might be improving faster. So who does the bear kill? They kill the slowest in the pack. Who does the market kill? They kill the slowest to meet the changing expectations of the market. And it may not be limited to just one company. Think about the internet 20 years ago. Who the major players were. Remember Netscape? Okay, another area is disintermediation. This is something that could impact you. Disintermediation is another force where a company may be removed by a supplier by cutting out the middleman. So you look at tire companies. You can go down to the Firestone store. They'll service your car. Well, it used to be that Firestone didn't sell directly to you. How about clothing brand names in outlet malls who now compete? They even sell still to other retail stores, but they also compete against them. Disintermediation can be imposed on you, or it might be an opportunity for you to lower some of your costs and go direct to the customers. It's just another area to consider when you're talking about strategic management of your resources. Another term, driving forces. Driving forces are major underlying causes of change in industry conditions and the competitive landscape. They can be internal to your company, they can be external. So internal driving forces can be things like knowledge. What knowledge is required for you to get a toehold in a market? What's the competency of your management to be able to do that? What's the competency of your workforce? External driving forces can be things like the economy, rival forces, how strong are they, how many of them, what's the potential for others coming in, like we talked about earlier. Technology. Technology is driving a lot of change where you need to look at the resources that you're going to employ. Companies may fall behind the power curve when major changes occur. Employees are then expected to do more with less. Bad news adversely impacts morale and productivity, potentially creating a downward spiral and an out-of-control situation, adding further to uncertainty. Good people leave, and others stay. These are the times when you need to be the most focused on your overall picture, your overall strategy. Many companies at this point benefit from collaborative efforts. Collaborate with consultants. Collaborate with your key suppliers. Look at it as something where you're going to talk to your suppliers and establish a win-win scenario. Your key customers, other stakeholders. It's beneficial to identify those 3 or 4 driving forces that are most applicable to your situation, to your industry, and address them first. So once again, Pareto is your friend. Okay, so far we've talked about the external environment and competitors. Now let's talk about the products themselves. Note, when I say products, it can also relate to services if you're in the service industry. So first, you've got the introduction stage on the left-hand side. This is where your product moves from a concept to trying it out in the market. If it's not done properly, it's going to die a rapid death. As it moves into its market growth phase, the product concept can be refined as a result of things like quality issues, and customers give you some input on what they're seeing. At this point, flexible product development is the ability to rapidly make changes in the product either being developed or already on the market, or even in how it's being developed. So it could be interactive where you get a beta test out in the market and you're getting feedback directly from your customers and making revisions to the product. This is a crucial activity that occurs during the growth period. It's important even relatively late in a product's development. Request product redesign development without being too disruptive, and things like software beta tests that you've been subject to. We've all been subject to it, knowingly or unknowingly, having to beta test somebody else's product launch. So if you're the manufacturer, this is a good capability to have, having flexible product development. It's where in the right markets you can push a lot of your resources and get a big return on those on that deployment. So next, as the market growth becomes more apparent, market development priorities need to replace product development ones. Later still in the product life cycle, as the product reaches maturity, the business is typically optimized in both sales and profits. At this point, more competitors are likely to enter the market, and it's going to become necessary for you to decide whether you modify your strategy. Maybe you become a low-cost leader. Maybe you prune your product offering. Look at your markets. Maybe some of them aren't working as well for you as others, so you close some markets served. Focus on the most profitable ones. Make sure you defend them. Maybe you expand into new markets, maybe even going international. Or you look at technology and you start to employ new technologies to increase speed to market, drive down your costs, or do some other things. So during this period, other products or technologies begin to replace yours. You can decide to harvest the remaining profits, or just let it decline. So you look at it and you say, I see this thing's mature. I'm going to go on to a different product, or I'm just going to move out of this industry completely. Let's milk it for all it's worth and let it die a slow death. Or you can reinvent the business, the product, or even the market. The markets that you serve. This reinvention creates a product extension period. You can see that here, where during this decline, you take and harness some different energies. You start to look at ways to move into different markets, whatever, and actually bump your sales up for a short or long period of time. So here, what you see is I've taken the 4 stages and I've shifted them. So I go into a new market, say an international market. Here's an example of venturing out of your home market into a new one. This can reset your curve back to the growth phase and add years to your product life cycle, especially if it's an expansion into a new international market. You got to watch. It's going to require specific knowledge of how the market is going to accept your products. So you need market-specific product knowledge. You need to understand the changing logistics. If you were regional, even if you were national, and all of a sudden you go international, there's going to be a different logistics play, payment methods, taxes, legal issues, cultural differences, a lot more. So, manufacturing.net. I can send this. If anybody wants this, email me. Manufacturing.net is putting on a free webinar on October 31st. It's a Monday, and it's called Product Lifecycle Management, Challenges and Solutions. So if this particular part of my presentation is of interest to you, I've got some more information, maybe another webinar that you'd want to attend by manufacturing.net. So sticking with the international opportunities, international expansion should hardly be a casual decision. I've already said that. Some firms have established very clear dominance within their markets. These are their profit sanctuaries. These sanctuaries can be their home markets, or they can be in other countries where they have established a clear competitive niche. Think of Colombian coffee in the United States, right? So profit sanctuaries are country markets where a firm has a strong protected market position and derives substantial profits. Profit sanctuaries are a valuable competitive asset in global industries. These can be your cash cows. They can be where you're grabbing money and you're pushing it back out into R&D or marketing opportunities in other non-profit sanctuary markets. Here you see that Firm A has a profit sanctuary in their own home market. Also, you look and they have a profit sanctuary in country E. Maybe we look at this as Colombian coffee. But they suffer competition from Firm B in country C. So look at this model in your environment, in your company, and put one of these together for all of your major current and potential competitors to see what you should be doing with your resources and where to properly deploy them. Okay, I'm going to shift over to corporate social responsibility because it's something that's coming on more and more as an area that maybe companies don't necessarily want to put as many resources as they have to into, but it is a place where resource management needs to take place. There's something called sustainability, and sustainability occurs when an organization focuses on activities that provide present benefit without compromising the needs for future generations. So this area of business is becoming stronger every day, with more economically developed countries individually or jointly developing initiatives that affect most industries. Companies can benefit from their corporate social responsibility by integrating these social concerns into their corporate objectives. I mentioned earlier the triple bottom line. This is where your company, when environmental and social factors that a company can influence are added to traditional measures that we see and we have seen for years of profit, return on investment, shareholder value, things like that. So corporate sustainability starts with the company's value system and a principled approach to doing business. This means operating in ways that, at minimum, meet fundamental responsibilities in the areas of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR, proponents have used four primary arguments to make their case. One, it's your moral obligation. Be a good citizen and do the right thing. Number two, sustainability. Meet today's needs without compromising our children's futures. Number three, license to operate. You need a license to operate in this area because you have your hazmat training or whatever. In short, this means simply adopting and conforming to benign environmental programs that are required just by regulatory authorities. No more, just compliance. And four, lastly, reputation. Improved image and branding, potentially raising shareholder value. Better than the first three, right? A lot of companies are selling their being green. It's one of the reasons a company's logo, like BP, has evolved, as you can see here. All four of these arguments have one weakness. They focus on tensions between society and business rather than on their interdependencies. While these responsive corporate social responsibility, CSR programs may not be philanthropic and make a positive impact on society, they're typically, but not always, incidental to an organization's core business. On the strategic side, strategic CSR involves transformative internalization of value chain processes and delivering value to customers, strengthening the company's competitiveness while still addressing internal and external social issues. For CSR programs to be sustainable, they need to address 5 key questions. Considering the costs and benefits associated with the program, can a business case be made? From an organizational point of view, does management buy into the program, and are they willing to provide the necessary resources? 3, from an operational point of view, is the whole organization engaged in the process, and do they know what to do? 4, can systems be used to provide planning information for the management of internal as well as external operations? And lastly, are there metrics in place that can be monitored, managed, and audited in a timely manner? Okay, moving on to financial objectives. The optimal achievement of financial objectives needs to align goals, have a longer-term thinking approach, a higher-level thinking, and planning and management of resources. So, first one, alignment of goals. Make sure that your measurement model is hierarchical. So you're going to explode from the top down. Top management is going to decide what's the most important to meet consistently, and make sure that you've got more frequent measures down at the lower levels. So we talked about the top being long-term thinking, down below maybe being daily, weekly. So you're going to have to make sure that your measurements are more frequent at the lower levels. Then broaden your measurements beyond strictly financial ones. Look at your customer expectations. Look at employee development, morale. Look at your sustainability that we talked about in the last section. What's your business process? What should be sustained? What should be changed? A balanced scorecard approach is very valuable here, or may even be essential. Benchmark your products, processes, and services to others who have superior performance. This has been done for decades. You benchmark against the best. That doesn't necessarily mean they need to be competitors. They can be in a completely different industry. In fact, some of the best benchmarking is done outside of your market. Quality, on the quality front, can be an order qualifier. You're not going to get in if you don't have at least a minimal quality threshold to satisfy the customers. It's something that's necessary to sell anything. It can also provide a competitive advantage. So make sure that your products and services create value for your customers. So next, looking at longer periods into the future, when you're looking at the corporate level, you're typically looking 3 to 5 years. It might be longer for some long-term oriented companies, but strategically, you need to evaluate your processes, your resource requirements, responsibilities, your organizational design. You know, how long has your organization been structured the way it is, and is it still appropriate? Look at your supplier market. How has that changed? How have the suppliers that you're using right now changed in the customer base that they're serving? What are your customers' expectations? Look at all of these at the strategic level. If done properly, you can set the pace of change in the market, influence the rules of engagement, and force your competition to follow. Just like Ishikawa or a fishbone diagram can be broken into different areas, a company can focus on areas such as processes, technologies, structures, training, and area-specific measurements. So starting at the top, make sure that all KPIs are aligned, but also appropriate to the specific areas being measured. If they're too easy, you're leaving money on the table. And frankly, employees are not motivated toward improvement. If they're not achievable, employees aren't going to be motivated toward improvement either. Make sure that your goals have a long-term component and are SMART. We've heard of SMART goals. Just a reminder, the SMART acronym stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, important, relevant, and that they have deadlines or at least a time factor associated with them. Moving into the higher level thinking. At a higher level of sophistication, ensure that all major requirements of the customer are identified, subsequently met or exceeded through the resulting product design process and the design of the operation of the supporting production management system. An excellent tool for doing this is QFD, or Quality Function Deployment. I've used it a number of times. It's a great tool. We're not going to go into the details of it today, way too complex, but we're going to touch it more in the classes that are coming up. Build on your credentials in the marketplace. Spend money. Utilize your resources to do something different. Build your credentials by becoming ISO 9001 2015 certified, ISO 14000 if you're in an area where people care about environmental management more so. Look at the Deming Prize. Go for the Deming Prize, Malcolm Baldrige Award. Maybe you've got some industry-specific achievements. Deploy your resources to get that credential. Just like APIC certification adds credentials to individuals. You've got credentials that can add value to a company. Assure necessary communications. Avoid the bullwhip effect, right? By providing timely information that's going to benefit other entities across your supply chain, your suppliers, your inbound transportation group, your outbound transportation, distribution, warehousing people, your end customers. Open up your ERP and other systems as appropriate to incorporate service providers, distribution partners, supplier partners, and collaborative product design. So go to your customers and say, this is what we're thinking about designing for you. What do you think? And start a collaborative design process. or work with your manufacturing group and design for manufacturability. Consider cloud. Everything seems to be moving into the cloud lately. Consider cloud procurement solutions like Ariba or other companies. SAP's Ariba is a great one to manage your buying, your selling, your transportation services, managing your AP, your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, pushing out requests for quotes, all other associated activities. Monitor the Internet of Things. This is another one that's coming down the pike. I went to the APIX conference last week, and this Internet of Things is becoming huge. It's really it almost dominated all of the papers that were presented. See if the new technology for product tracking and other purposes would give you a competitive advantage. If you don't keep an eye on it, one of the risks is if you don't embrace it, maybe it becomes a competitive disadvantage and you don't even know it. So companies who are in the most successful part of IoT are those that start with a customer-facing vision and not looking at their operations at that point, not overly focusing on cost-saving aspects of the Internet of Things. Look at what the customer is expecting out of these technologies. Planning and managing resources. Lastly, we're going to talk about this, and then we'll wrap it up. Enforce company policies and practices. Adopt the best practices. Create standard work. Utilize lean techniques. Build strong leadership. Hire right. Train, retrain, and reward success. Consider your size and location. Map your suppliers, customers, transportation modes. Determine if you have the right resources deployed in the right locations. Globalization of your supplier base and your customer base may have rendered your previously optimized current structure and locations suboptimal. Consider the use of 3PLs and 4PLs, third-party logistics providers, 4PLs, four-party logistic providers. There's an excellent article in the quarter 4 this year, quarter 4 2016, MHI Solutions, Material Handling Institute Solutions magazine on the growing role of 3PLs. A lot of good information in that. Again, if you want to email me, ask me for the specific reference, I can give that to you. But it was enlightening to me as to how many different things these 3PLs are coming out with in order to become more valuable to their customers. Consider available equipment and systems technologies that can provide improved throughput and quality at lower costs. Also, make sure that when you're doing that, you consider safety, regulatory, and requirement improvements. A lot of additional safety features are being added to new equipment coming on nowadays. Prioritize and address your reasons for inventory being needed. Make sure that it's your inventory is aligned with your current market expectations and your financial capabilities. Don't leave your old inventory rules. What's my min-max? What's my inventory level? Or let your chief financial officer dictate this is all you can do on inventory if you know that that's not going to service your market acceptably. Push back. If your inventory, and inventory is a resource, by the way, that's why we're talking about it here. It is one of your key resources in making sure that you service your customers. If your inventory policy has not been reviewed in a while, it may be time to look at it from a company-wide perspective. Do it. This has to be done at least once a year. Communicating your mission with all your employees, encourage them to get involved, recognize that everyone is on the same team, implement their good suggestions rapidly, eliminate conditions that stifle open communication, and tell them how valuable a resource they are, and tell them how the business is doing. Let them know, good or bad. So, the biggest concern for any organization should be when their most passionate people become quiet. That's it. We talked about the development of business strategies. We moved down into operation strategies. We've talked throughout this about planning and managing resources at the business level, at the operations level, strategic level. how we align our resources with these plans, how we look at the performance objectives, how they tie in with the resources to support the strategies. We looked at global environment, sustainability. We moved into the very important financial objectives. And then I pushed us out into the longer term and higher level thinking with some of the things that are out on the market just recently. So I hope that was a little bit of fun, a little bit of knowledge was passed through during this. Again, Greg Foskey. I still have affiliation with Technology Transfer Services for those of you that know that affiliation, but we've got a group that's going to be focused very heavily on Panama, the country of Panama. So I've established another company called Panama Primo Group. You can still reach me at the TTS email addresses if that's what you've got in your files, or the TTS phone number. So either way, but take a look at the PanamaPrimoGroup.com website too if you want to have anything that I can help you with. So thank you. Okay, we've got some questions.
Do you want to know any recommended resources for further reading?
Yeah, I've got a couple of books. Certainly the Strategic Management of Resources materials from APIX are important. There are a couple of books by Thompson. There are strategic planning books. There's one that's oriented more toward the CPIM exams. If you'd like, send me your email address and I'll give you the very specifics on two very good books, depending on which way you want to look at this. They're tomes. They're 800 pages each. They've got a lot of information in them. So I'll be glad to send that to you.
Hey, Greg, that was very informative. We certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share that information with us. And if anyone else has any more questions, if you just go ahead and put them in the chat box. Greg, you have a couple more minutes to take some more questions for us?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, and then we will take a few more questions.